I'm very pleased to present to you the presentation for Lost Planet 3. You're going to love what you're about to see. I want to introduce my esteemed guests here, Andrew Szymanski from Capcom Japan, and Kevin Scharff from Spark, the development house for the game. And they're going to tell you all about Lost Planet 3, Eden 3. Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks a lot for showing up on a Sunday morning. We're really glad to be here to talk to you about Lost Planet 3 and some of the work and all of the kind of background that went into the game and how we're bringing it to you. So just a quick introduction. My name is Andrew Szymanski. As Francis said, I work at the Capcom Tokyo office, and I'm the project lead for LP3 at Capcom, and that basically means that I sort of oversee the entire project and make sure that we make a kick-ass game to bring to you guys.
Hi everyone, my name's Kevin Scharff. I'm the lead producer at Spark Unlimited. We're the developer of Lost Planet 3. My job is to manage a little over 100 very hard-working, dedicated developers who are toiling each and every day to bring you Lost Planet 3.
All right. Thank you. So to kick everything off, we're going to show you our most recent trailer and give you a little idea of what the game's all about.
Welcome to Eden 3, Jim.
Hey, beautiful. I'd love to say that I'm getting used to it, that the cold is growing on me, but it ain't.
Nevik believes this can solve the energy crisis on Earth.
I believe it can.
There's something the old man's not telling us.
Believe me, James, this place has secrets.
What the?
What are you doing? Boss, we have a saboteur in the base.
They told me we were the only ones on this planet.
Thank you so much. So before we go into more detail about some of the techniques that we used to make some of our cinematics and other things that you saw there, I just want to cover a little bit about why we went in and started working on Lost Planet 3 in the first place. So why revisit the Lost Planet franchise? Capcom felt very strongly coming out of Lost Planet 2 that we wanted to get back to the franchise roots of extreme conditions. As a lot of you may know, the first game, the subtitle was Lost Planet Extreme Conditions, and it's all about sort of the cold and the frozen nature and the desolate kind of nature of EDN 3, which is the world where all the games take place. So we really felt like we wanted to get back to our roots in that regard. We also felt very strongly that we wanted to focus on a character and narrative-driven experience. Lost Planet 2 was very much sort of a free-for-all kind of very balls-to-the-wall action experience, if you will. And of course, action is very important for the series, but we also wanted to get that strong character element to give you characters that you could relate to and a story that you would want to see through to the end. And that was something that we felt strongly about as well. We also wanted to show the origins of the franchise, and I'll talk a little bit about that as we go on. But we wanted to kind of go back in time, if you will, and look at the pioneers that came to the planet way back when, and sort of started colonizing and started taming the frontier of EDN3. And that was a theme that we had been wanting to do ever since the first game, and we felt that in terms of technology and in terms of timing that this was the right time. And given all of these factors, Capcom felt that working together in concert with the Western partner, Spark, would be a great way to kind of hit on all of these major points. So in order to kick off that process, we got a group of our Osaka development team that had worked on the first 2 games, and we got together with Spark, flew out to LA, and kind of had all these meetings in order to set up what the game was going to be. And our goal was to kind of bring the strengths of the 2 sides together. So obviously the Osaka team had a lot of experience, a lot of strengths from the games that they had done. We also felt that Spark could bring a lot of sensibilities. They're based out of Los Angeles. They have a lot of film and TV experience on staff, and we felt that that would be a great way to sort of enhance the concept that we were trying to do. So the goal was really to build a shared vision of the final game experience. So it was important for us, especially when you're working in a collaboration that spans an ocean and several thousand miles. It was important that we kind of got together and decided what do we want the final product to look like, and you really have to have that vision in order to make sure that each side is working toward that common goal. The ultimate objective was to create something more than the sum of its parts. We really wanted to make sure that this was a game that neither Capcom internally in Japan nor Spark alone would have been able to do. It really needed to be something that leveraged the strengths of both teams. We began the concept development phase, which is sort of the first beginning portion of game development. It's when you go in and it's literally almost this giant brainstorming session where you say, what if this, and what if we do that, and how could this work? And this is a really important part of the process. Before you can start coding any software, before you can start creating any real assets, once again, you've got to have a vision of what the game is going to be. So the Capcom and Spark teams got together. We flew across both sides of the ocean to sit down for days at a time in order to discuss these core elements: the gameplay, the characters, the narrative, the game structure, atmosphere, and pacing. And in order to build consensus on this, it took a lot of work, but it's a very stimulating process because you sit down and you do drawings like you see here. You do a lot of conversations to say, what does each side find important about the franchise? What does each side really want to achieve? And that was something that was very fulfilling for us. So we had multiple disciplines involved. Game designers, of course, talking about pacing, talking about atmosphere, the enemies, encounters, and things like that. Art direction. We did a lot of pieces of concept art. And of course the storytelling element as well. And it was very important for us to come up with an overall narrative arc before the writers can go in and actually flesh that out. So by working together, we conceived a shared vision of a frontier Lost Planet game. Once again, the idea being that this is the story of the first humans to arrive on the planet and sort of how they're building this existence and how they're constructing this colony and figuring out how to survive amongst that environment. So next step I'd like to do is show you a little bit about how those ideas came together by doing a game demo. And I'm going to kind of explain what you're seeing here in the demo. And this is actually a chunk of one of the final levels of the game that will take you through some of our combat stuff. And we're going to wrap it with the cinematic. And this is actually the first time in this sort of type of venue that we're showing an entire full cinematic from the game. So we really want you guys to see sort of not only the action-based stuff that this series is known for, but we're also going to segue into talking about some of our more narrative elements. So this here is Jim, who's our main character, and we'll be talking more about him later, but he's been given a mission here in the game to go to the top of Shackleton's Peak, which is the tallest mountain on EDN3, and he has to repair a communication station that's broken down. Now, in order to get there, he's going to have to go through the mountain to get to the top, and one of the things he's going to have to deal with is these wasp acrid, which is a new enemy type that's showing up in the game. So we're going to watch here as Jim is going to fight through some of these wasp acrid to get through their nest and get to the top of the mountain. Now we're doing a lot of cool things with the combat. We've got the same third-person shooting elements that everybody remembers from the first 2 games, but we've got a cover system for the first time in the franchise. It's not anything that you're going to be forced to use. If you want to run and gun it and duck and roll and dodge just like you've done in the previous games, you can do that, of course. This is the struggle mode, and one of the things that's interesting to mention about the struggle mode is we actually did this to get away from what you would consider to be a traditional QTE. We didn't want it just to be button mashing. In fact, you've got to match up the reticle here with the enemy and pull the trigger when it turns red. And the reason that we really did this is we wanted to always keep that aiming element, because one of the best things about a shooter is your ability to aim. Here we've warped to the top of the mountain, so he's gone through the nest and got up to the top of the mountain, and we've got a little bit of our mysterious backstory that is in play.
What the hell?
As I mentioned earlier, Jim and the other colonists that are with him have been told that they're the first humans on the planet, but he's seeing now that that might not be the case.
Cronus Actual, this is Peyton. Listen, I don't know how else to say this, but I think we might have a saboteur on the base.
Saboteur? Jim, no offense. You're not supposed to go stir-crazy until you've been here at least a year.
I'm serious, boss. Somebody was out here.
All right, Jim, I believe you. First things first, head into the relay station, raise the satellite dish, and call up the tram.
So Jim is now going to finish the last step in restoring this communication satellite that will allow them to communicate with Earth.
Comm dish locked and ready for transmission.
So obviously you spend a lot of time in the game creating these sort of large scale moments to really sell you on the size of the world and Jim's effect on that world. Another aspect of Lost Planet 3 that's important is the utility rig, which is our vehicle. It's a giant mech that Jim uses to fulfill construction contracts and things like that. And in this level, actually earlier on, you've repaired a gondola system that allows you to actually grab that rig and bring it to the top of the mountain. So he's actually calling it up right now. And so he's gonna jump in that rig and finish the last
Cronus Actual,
part
you
of
copy?
this
I've got the
mission.
satellite dish working. Just waiting for the rig to come up.
Now we've got someone here who's not too happy to have an intruder on the mountain. This is the spitter acrid, which is one of our larger acrid types. The acrid, of course, being the indigenous life form and the majority of the enemies that you fight in the game. Now the spitter is a pretty formidable enemy when Jim is on foot. You've got to dodge all of his attacks, of which he has many. And so this is very much a boss encounter on foot. And in a moment we're going to see how something that is a boss on foot like this, when you get into the utility rig and you have the ability to sort of take it on with something of its own size, that will change the encounter quite a bit. So a large part of Lost Planet 3 is the dichotomy between how you play when you're outside of the rig versus inside of the rig. And as always, with the acrid enemies, you're going to be looking for that weak spot, the glowing orange spot, which we call the core. So it looks like Jim's done enough damage now to get that spitter to sort of retreat back into its lair for the time being. Which is good for us because the rig is about to come up. We'll deal with a few of these remaining wasp creatures, and then we're going to jump in that rig and finish off the enemy. You can see Jim picking up some thermal energy, which is obviously another important part of the franchise. That can be used to purchase upgrades and things like that as well, so we've got an economy system in the game. We're jumping in the rig now, and as you can see in the rig, you actually go into a first-person perspective, and that's very important for us because it allows us to really show the scale of the rig, and by putting you up high, you're able to kind of look down at the environment. So the same area that you were walking around in just a moment ago looks very different when you're just high up. Now we're using the winch attachment here, which is one of our rig upgrades that takes that claw arm that's on the left arm and allows you to shoot it out on a cable. And that's really useful for fighting some of these smaller acrid, as well as grabbing on and reeling in some of the larger acrid.
Fair fight this time, pal.
So the spitter is returned for the second round of the fight, and this is obviously going to be much more evenly matched now that we're in the rig. Let's see what we can do with this. Some bashing with the drill arm. There's the winch again, so we've grabbed on, and now you're going to mash the A button to reel it in. You do have to aim the winch to fire it out. Now we've lifted up the tail, and he's using the drill to drill the weak spot. Just want to mention that when you're actually playing the game, you've got to do all of these actions independently. So the left trigger controls the left side of the rig. So anytime you grab something, you use the winch, you're using the left side of the controller, the trigger and the buttons there. And anytime you want to attack something, you're using the right side of the controller, the trigger and the buttons there. So here we go with a little bit of a bash that's going to stun the creature. We're looking to move in for the kill at this point. So a little bit of a bash here stuns it. We're going to go and grab with the left trigger, and then this gives us the opportunity to finish it off. So that was a little glimpse of our gameplay, just to give you an idea of sort of what we're looking for with the game. Thank you. And to finish off here, we're actually going to show you this full cinematic, so if we can get a little bit of volume, that'd be great.
Dr. Roman?
Drop your weapon!
Whoa, whoa. Easy now, Doc.
Who are you? Where'd you come from?
I'm Jim Payton. Just here to check
Where
up...
from?
Coronis! What the hell, lady? Where else would I be from? Braddock sent me.
I know you.
Right. They came down with that creepy fella you don't like, with the big head. Just hitching a ride, I swear. Barely know the guy. You may be done aiming things at me now?
Braddock sent you?
I want to make sure you're okay. See if you needed any help.
Touching concern after all these months. To what do I owe such an excess of caution?
I might ask the same, Shotgun Sally.
You've seen it then, haven't you?
It?
Someone in the distance. Watching.
Hard to know what I saw. They say folks start to crack up. Out here in the white too long?
Perhaps. Do you feel cracked?
Can't say as I do.
Then there's something the old man's not telling us. You realize that?
Trying not to.
I know how it is. You didn't come here to ask questions. But believe me, James, this place has secrets. Keep your eyes open, or they'll sneak up on you when you least expect it.
It's no good and ominous, Doc. I'm just here to do a job.
That's convenient. I've got one for you.
Thank you so much. So I hope that cinematic there gave you an idea sort of once again, how we're looking to bring a much more character-driven narrative focus to the game. So this is a great time now for me to allow Kevin to tell you a little bit more about how we achieved some of that.
Thank you, Andrew. Just like Andrew mentioned, we're going to go ahead and pull the curtain back a little bit and show you how we engage in crafting this narrative process, which is so important to telling the story of Lost Planet 3. As Andrew was talking about and how Lost Planet 3 and the goals that we have, one of which is that we wanted to really craft a very strong narrative to pull you in and relate to the characters, understand the desolation of the planet. So we set kind of four kind of key goals, four key narrative goals. The first is that we needed to make it a much more intimate experience. You could even see in the cinematic or some of the segments within the gameplay, we're always trying to pull you in and relating to the main character and relating to Jim, who you're playing, whether it's in the struggle mode or whether it's within the relationships in the cinematics themselves. We wanted a very personal narrative and a personal storyline. We also wanted to do a more modernized storytelling, leveraging a lot more, I would say, traditional Hollywood techniques that are in vogue with doing a lot of CG development and computer graphics. And we'll show you a little bit about that coming up. Also, we wanted to craft a believable hero. Jim is not a super space marine. He's not the classic anti-hero. He's a blue-collar guy going off to a harsh, extreme world to earn hazard pay, to make good for his family. And you want to understand his story and his motivations of why he would go through all that. So we needed to really make someone that you could relate to. And our process of developing our characters and our storytelling techniques highly revolved around that. And lastly, we really wanted to showcase this return to extreme conditions. And through storytelling techniques, we can really reflect the harshness and the desolate nature of EDN3 and why it's such a tough assignment, particularly for the early colonists. So, where did we begin? As Andrew mentioned, we got together for a concept development phase. We put a large emphasis in developing our characters through concept. It begins a lot, like you see in the slide, through doing a lot of rough thumbnail sketches. Here you see Phil Braddock, who's the Nevik foreman. We're really looking to explore rough silhouettes and shapes on defining his personality and what their gear, everything, their gear, their costume could be like to get an impression of their personality here. But we found that to really tell the story, that just kind of roughing out who our characters were wasn't going to be enough. And so we put a lot of emphasis on bringing what's really in vogue now in Hollywood, which is this idea of a digital double. You see it a lot in kind of CG film work, but in terms of game development, we really wanted to push the envelope. So what is a digital double? It's essentially looking at taking the holistic performance of a character from everything from their likeness and their acting ability and bringing that all the way through into the game as a single unified performance. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go, but essentially at a high level it starts with casting. And when we look to cast, traditionally in a lot of game development, you find a particularly strong voice actor, or you might find a particularly well-trained action actor to do the motion capture, but you seldom find looking for all those components together. So we were looking for actors that really reflected the look of our character and their likeness, that also could perform very strongly in a motion capture environment, and also provided the voice. And having all of those together, we felt would allow us to push believable performances in our game much further. In terms of the character itself, we began leveraging character scanning, which essentially is taking detailed 3D photographic information of our characters. They are done 360-degree photographs that get stitched together and gets put back into making a character model to highly resemble very, very accurately the actual actor. We did this for the body to get correct proportions of our characters. We also did it with their face, including very detailed facial shapes so that you can get really extreme expressions for whether they're angry or they're upset or overjoyed. We could capture how that would work from when the actor gives the performance all the way through to when you see the character in the game. And lastly, we kind of leverage traditional Hollywood techniques of what we call like hair and makeup passes, where we really want to make our characters feel not only connected in how they're built, but in the world in which we're presenting them. So we really look at everything from their hairline to kind of how the world might weather their features and really do that pass. And we're going to show you a little bit more detail on that.
So Kevin, as we're talking about casting, just to clarify, when we're doing this digital double process, you're actually finding an actor who looks like the character, and so the character's face is the actor's face and vice versa. Is that correct?
Absolutely. You can see in this slide our actress who plays Dr. Roman, Tracy Lee. You can see kind of her in real life and kind of how she gets projected and personified for how we wanted to present her in Lost Planet 3. So we really look for these kind of comprehensive performance qualities, how they look, how they move, and how they sound.
And how is this different from things that you mentioned earlier that usually you're casting just for voice? So it's my understanding that usually what happens is you may have a separate actor doing the mocap versus doing the voice acting, et cetera. So this is a different approach.
Yes, and with the idea being in mind that in the end of the day, you want the ability of having the completeness of the performance, to get everything that the actor can give you and how they perform gets translated into the game, as opposed to taking someone's voice and matching onto someone's body on some generated face that are all disconnected. You see this a lot in games, and you often see cinematics seem very disjointed, or even in-game characters seem very disjointed. And we really wanted to address that because we found that you can't tell a compelling story if you don't believe in the characters and how they're emoting. So here's a little bit more of a character progression. Here's Bill Watterson, who plays Jim. You can see him in the upper left corner, actually in the whole top. Our actor, Bill, came in to do a scan. You can see he was doing facial scans this day. I believe in the upper left slide, he's doing he's asked to do just a nice, simple smile for the camera, and that is captured in and scanned in, so we actually get 3D geometry of how his whole face deforms. We'll show you a little bit more detail on that. Here he is in the middle, working with our character technical director, getting guidance on making sure we get all the accurate technical information as well. Also kind of compiled a little bit of kind of how we do the hair and makeup pass. In the upper right corner, you can kind of see various shots of how Bill is projected in various roles. We do a clear analysis of how our character would look, or our actor would look when they're lit in different ways, because that's often, as you can see in the bottom left corner, often remiss when you get the initial scan data, that you have to go after and make your character look in the best possible light. We want to match their hairline. We want to make sure they're lit properly. We want to see how their chin is constructed with or without facial hair. And you can kind of see in the kind of the progression in the bottom what we do for the hair and makeup or the eyes when we adjust the textures on the skin to give them a more weathered look. We soften some of the features that maybe the scanning was a little bit too harsh to really take the character to really feel not just accurate, but also very much immersed in the world. So you get a sense that it's very much a process that relies on getting accuracy, but also acknowledging the importance of having very talented artists and art direction to really lock in the feel. And Jim in the bottom right is the result of not only Bill's contributions or the scanning's contribution, but also the work of several dozen very hardworking artists.
So Bill, the actor, comes in, and you not only basically take pictures of his face to get the actual textures that you're going to use that we see there on the bottom left in the raw form, but then you're also doing the expression so that when later on when he acts and he smiles, it'll be his actual smile instead of just a randomly animated smile.
Absolutely. Everyone's face moves differently. You study yourself a lot in the mirror. As a former trained animator, I spent a lot of time in the past doing all types of tricks in front of a mirror to understand how the face works. And it's very, very nuanced. And as everyone can attest, it is a very hard thing to do to be able to sell a convincing, subtle performance by a human being. We all know how we are naturally, and we can see when it doesn't work. So we spent a lot of time really trying to understand how we get those subtleties, and by getting the scans of how every actor's face deforms correctly, it gives us a huge leg up that when we actually move their face and give a facial performance, we're drawing from very accurate information.
And when Kevin says deforms, he means moves, by the way. That's animator lingo. Okay, moving on.
So once we have the characters, we need to take them to the next stage. They look beautiful in a still shot, but what about how they interact with each other? So again, we want to look for fully realized performances to capture some of the magic that you might get on a stage or in the theater, and allow the characters to really express themselves in relationships. So what we did is we took our same actors that we got all our scan data and built our characters around, and we did a simultaneous motion capture shoot where we captured their bodies as they moved, their facial information. You'll notice that when we show a clip, they all wear helmet-mounted cameras, much if you've seen like behind the scenes in famous movies like Avatar and whatnot. Same technology that we're getting accurate information of how their face moves, and we get not only video information, but we get facial data information. And additionally, we're recording their voices so that we're not going back later into a sound booth and just kind of matching as best as we can. We're getting the actual performance as the characters are interacting. And next up, we have a little clip from when we did a motion capture shoot. This is a sequence that we're going to kind of take you from start to finish. So this is 3 of our characters. This is Jim and Braddock, the Nevik foreman, as well as his rival contractor, LaRoche, all on motion capture stage. And you'll see kind of how they're interacting together, as well as how we captured their facial information.
Non-aggressive indigenous creatures, huh? Look at that. You want me back out there? I want a chain gun on my rig.
You know my hands are tied.
Oh.
NEVEC regulations.
Yes, don't weaponize the construction vehicles, but I mean in this
But
case...
nothing. I'm not gonna let you jeopardize my project on account of your nerve deficit.
Oh, please.
They call it hazard pay for a reason.
God damn, LaRoche. That is some love tap.
Ta gueule.
Hey, Jim, your rig ready to roll?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we've been surveying an energy pocket. A big one out by Howling Pass. And LaRoche here is not playing nice with the wildlife. So, interested?
Well, no, I don't want to just snake a man's contract.
No, take it. Get yourself killed.
Out for at least double, I mean.
So that was a situation where literally all those characters are acting inside of that studio as though they were in like a stage play, right? And you're getting all of that information from the way their body moves, from the way their face moves, and also from their voice, so that later on you can go and take those pieces and kind of do whatever you want with them. Is that right?
Absolutely, and you can tell there's strong performance giving there. Even though they're in a motion capture volume, there's a reason you go with professional actors and try to get all the benefits of those performances, because with seeing absolutely nothing, there's no environment or stage, they're giving a really great performance. And you'll see it as we go along, that by getting it all there, interacting together, you get a really tremendous performance.
And that's one of the reasons why one of the casting criteria was people who had a lot of theater experience or a lot of TV experience, so they would understand that it's not just about facing the camera, but it's about how the entire scene is set up. Is that right?
Absolutely. We wanted actors that were really great at being able to work off each other. Not just work in isolation.
Right, and that's usually how it's done in games, right? You get somebody in a voiceover booth and he's just reading his own lines, and there's never any interaction with the other actor.
If they're lucky, they'll maybe get some reference. Otherwise, they're just going off of a script. And it's very hard to give a compelling performance when you're not there. You can't use your body. You're just kind of detached. We really wanted to get to a much higher fidelity.
Okay, so we're going to see some examples specifically of how the facial capture was done. Is that right?
Yeah, so we're going to now shift gears a little bit and focus exclusively on how we talked a little bit about the face, how we get that process. You're going to go ahead. This is Jonathan Rumi, who plays the rival contractor LaRoche. You can see where we start with scanning, kind of a less flattering pre-scan. And here are some examples of the three-dimensional scans that we got.
John Mum, take 005.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Rumi, and here I am talking in Lost Planet 3. This is a technical test of our new face rig.
Non-aggressive indigenous creatures, huh? Look at that. You want me back out there? I want a chain gun on my rig.
So that was an example of, so that character is modeled off of his face, right? And so every movement that Jonathan, the actor, makes translates to an equal movement on the character because it's based on his facial structure. Is that right?
Absolutely true. And you could see there's a very strong translation between his performance he gave and the end result. And that has everything to do with getting his actual data. And that way our talented animation staff and our character development staff can focus on just the fine details, just punching it up just exactly where it needs, as opposed to just trying to make it work.
So once the motion capture is done, we have to bring all the pieces together.
Yes, so right now we have our characters, we have our motion capture data, we have our facial data, and we have our dialogue, but it doesn't mean anything unless you can put it together. So we take all that data goes through its processes to get cleaned up and brought back into a source file, three-dimensional source file, so that our rest of our staff, our artists, our animators, our character technical department can work with it. But there's one missing element that we wanted to add that is very much involved in kind of live action process. But we want to take advantage of the fact that we already have all this information. This wonderful, compelling, beautiful performance is already there. And we need to do our cinematography, do our virtual camera work. So what we do is we take this set and the performances, and we bring it back into a motion capture volume, but instead of actors on the stage, we bring in our virtual camera. So if you want to go ahead and roll this clip, you'll see a little bit of our virtual camera. So you can see our cinematics team on the television set is the captured performance within a three-dimensional set that's been incorporated. But they're literally moving the camera, testing out various different angles. What if I try this truck? Or what if I try this dolly? How would this shot work from a high angle? How would it work from a low angle? What if I fly through the scene? What if I get up close? And they can shoot this coverage over and over again.
And just so people understand what they're seeing, so basically you've got those actors it's like they're in the room with the camera. And so when you move that camera in and out, it's like you're filming the actors right in front of you in that virtual space. And it's hard until you actually see it in person. But that's basically what they're doing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And our Cinemax team is just doing kind of a simple move here, but when you see the progression of the cinematic, which we're going to show next, you're going to see a lot of really dynamic camera moves. But because we have the performance already created, we have every ability to go for the single best way to tell the story. We know we can make it much more intimate. We can figure out the appropriate time to do a close-up or an establishing shot, yet we can do that after the fact. We don't have to guess right on the stage at the time we're shooting. We don't have to fully block it out ahead of time. We can really examine the best elements that the actors gave in their performance.
And this is exactly what they did on Avatar to do the final shots, right?
Yes.
Nice. Okay, so when we take those actors and the performances and then we put in the virtual camera, this is kind of what we get, right?
Yeah, so here is kind of in our 3D source file. Our cameras have been shot and added. It's the same performances we saw off the motion capture stage. You can see that the facial information has been put back on. Our characters have kind of been fully realized in a simple way. And you can see the camera is now able to be really dynamic because we can explore the performance after the fact. And our cinematics director really got a chance for this particular scene to tell that intimate story. You can see how the camera beautifully moves and showcases the relationships of the characters as they go.
And you can see the camera panning around, and that makes a huge difference in how it's perceived, right?
Correct.
So let's take a look at that with some audio so we can get a feel.
Non-aggressive indigenous creatures, huh? Look at that. You want me back out there? I want a chain gun on my rig.
So they were doing this with that virtual camera.
Avec regulations.
Yes, don't weaponize the construction vehicles, but I mean in this
But
case...
nothing. I'm not gonna let you jeopardize my project on account of your nerve deficit.
Oh, please.
They call it hazard pay for a reason.
God damn, LaRoche. That is some love tap.
Ta gueule.
Hey, Jim, your rig ready to roll?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we've been surveying an energy pocket. A big one out by Howling Pass. And LaRoche here is not playing nice with the wildlife. So, interested?
Well, no, I don't want to just snake a man's contract.
No, take it. Get yourself killed.
Out for at least double, I mean.
So now we've got all of our performances and we put in our camera work, but obviously we could see there was still a lot of unfinished elements. So what do we have to do then to get the final cinematic?
Yeah, so we've gotten everything we tried to accomplish in getting all our source material, our cameras, our characters, all of our motion, and it's looking great. But it's time to kind of take it to the last step, which is first and foremost, we bring it inside of our game engine so we can make sure that there's consistency and continuity between the game that you're playing and any of the cinematics. All of our cinematics come out of our game, not something that's separately rendered or separately generated, because we wanted to create that seamlessness. But at this time, that's when we also add our animation polish, particularly for any of our additional components that are in addition to our characters. We add a detailed lighting pass. We add visual effects into the world. And also we revisit audio for our sound effects, for our mix and our Foley, just to really bring the whole element to life. We add in all those last finishing details, because instead of having to worry about just getting the thing to work and getting the characters to function, we can really focus on the details that really make a much more narrative and carefully choreographed moment.
All right, well, let's check out the final result.
Non-aggressive indigenous creatures, huh? Look at that. You want me back out there? I'm on a chain gun on my rig.
You know my hands are tied.
Oh.
NVEC regulations.
Yes, don't weaponize the construction vehicles, but I mean in this case...
Nothing. I'm not gonna let you jeopardize my project on account of your nerve deficit.
Oh, please.
They call it hazard pay for a reason.
God damn, LaRoche. That is some love tap.
Ta gueule.
Hey, Jim, your rig ready to roll?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we've been surveying an energy pocket. A big one out by Howling Pass. And LaRoche here is not playing nice with the wildlife. So, interested?
Well, no, I don't want to just snake a man's contract.
No, take it. Get yourself killed.
Not for at least double, I mean.
Done.
What?
Attention. Lockdown lifted.
Man, that's my cue.
Jim, listen, you know, the main generator's still toast and the T-energy processor's working overtime. I don't need to tell you that we really need this one.
Don't you worry.
Double? 200 credits say they eat his face.
You want double? Well, quit your whining and earn it.
And there you go. That's what the final cinematic looks like. So thanks so much for giving us the opportunity to guide you through some of the creative process and how we're trying to really bring the characters to life in the game. And to let you know, the gameplay section that we saw earlier is available to play for anybody who wants to down at our booth, which is booth 2120. And the final cinematic that you saw is also part of another demo that we also have. We have two different demos that include a lot of these kind of cinematic moments, as well as a lot of really cool shooting elements as well. So definitely, if you have a chance to get down at the booth and play, please do. We are giving out a lot of swag to people who play the game. Bobby, what are we giving them specifically? Glow sticks and posters. So a lot of you already have the glow sticks, but you can get a poster if you play the game. And in addition to that, just want to let everybody know that Lost Planet 3 will be out in 2013 for PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and PC. And before we finish here today, I want to give everybody an opportunity to ask any questions you want, not only about what we've talked about here in the panel, but anything about the game in general. And for those who ask questions, we are having T-shirts that we are giving away.
So I'd like to ask if you want to ask a question to line up there to the microphone here at the stand. And I think we have time for about 5 or 6 questions. But first, before we do, I want to really thank you. That was the most fascinating, in-depth making of panel I have gone to. And I really want to thank Andrew and Kevin for that.
Thank you. We're having a blast.
You guys went truly behind the scenes. Thank you very much. Go ahead, sir.
Hey, thanks for the demo today. I'm new to the franchise, and I had my first opportunity to play on Thursday. And before there was any action, what sold me on it was the acting and the story. So definitely going to get the game. My question is, what's going to keep me playing the game after one playthrough? Does the game encourage multiple playthroughs? Are there going to be DLC? Like, what are you guys planning for people to keep coming back and get more than one playthrough out of it?
Sure. Well, not talking about DLC yet. Obviously, we want to get the game done and get it out there before we look at that stuff. But definitely, we're building in a lot of exploration elements and a lot of collectibles in the game. Lost Planet 3, in brief, is structured into multiple different types of missions. You've got sort of your main mission tree, that, if you will, that kind of guides the story through. So as you're completing those missions, you'll be unlocking new areas and you'll be seeing the story unfold. But you've also got side missions that different missions givers will give you. And then also you can just be out exploring the world and just find something, find an item, or find an additional area. So a lot of the effort that we're putting into the campaign part of the game is to say, hey, if you want to do a straight playthrough on your first run through just to get the story, because you really care what happens and you want to see it quickly, great. Second time through, take the time out in the rig to go and explore the world. Maybe buy some upgrades you didn't get the first time through that's going to allow you to access new areas and things like that. So we definitely want to include replayability as part of the game.
Cool. That sounds great.
Thank you. And actually, I wanted to actually give this gentleman a chance because I didn't realize there were two mics, but then we'll stick to this line here. So go ahead, sir.
Okay. Hi, I came a little bit late, so I don't know if you have already covered this point. But could you tell more about how deep the AI in the game is?
Talk about the AI?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a core tenet of not only the franchise, but for certain for Lost Planet 3, we put a very strong emphasis on our artificial intelligence, for those of you who want to know what AI is. And that's basically how the player will interact with all the characters in the world. We looked at, as you can tell, there's all types of creatures of various sizes and ways in which you engage. So we had to come up with very complex, compelling artificial intelligence, not only because of the different elements of the creatures, but now you have to be able to interact with them both while you're on foot and inside the utility rig. And they have fundamentally different behaviors depending on how you engage them. So it's been a very concerted effort. We have a large programming staff that is focused on gameplay and AI that's been going for several years now developing it.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
In the first game, we kind of got, at the very beginning of the first game, we kind of got the preview of what was going on Eden 3 before the first game took place, and we saw that there was this big military force that was trying to help terraform the planet. Are we going to by chance see a presence of them in this game?
Very smart man here asking the question. Obviously, we don't want to give away too many spoilers here, but the fact that we're sort of hinting that Jim's mission is not the only kind of force at work on the planet, I think is probably a good hint that we're going to see a lot more kind of about what happens in the early days of the planet. And we're including a lot of connections to LP1, so that by the time you finish LP3, you'll get a much better sense of how that kind of leads into the rest of the history of the planet as we've seen in the other two games.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hello. I just want to confirm something was Spark's idea to use actors, people for their cinematics, right?
Well, it was very much during the concept development stage, it was a goal that we needed to establish a very narrative-driven story. It was one of the proposed solutions. And certainly that was something that we talked about and discussed, and we looked at what's the appropriate fidelity for our characters, what type of style, and particularly when we honed in wanting more realistic characters. This is something that we had a lot of expertise in and staffed accordingly, and it's kind of an area of strength of ours.
Believe it or not, we actually started out with more traditional game style, a little bit more stylized characters, and we realized that for the story we wanted to tell that it wasn't working. So we actually had to throw out a lot of, even the scene that you just saw, all those characters had been done once, but we had to kind of throw them out and redo them with the digital double system because we felt that was the only way to sell the believability of a scene like that.
All right, because that's actually the first time I've seen something, because usually voice actors just say a line with everybody, and then, because sometimes they're not always all humans, like in the Guild Wars, there's like, small people and, monsters, but this is the first time. But for Spark particularly, do you think you could do more of that for games that's gonna hire you more for something like that? Because I know for this one, Capcom did hire you to do this, but will you guys pursue other things? Same concept?
Absolutely. We've invested a lot in this pipeline, these techniques, and it's very much, I think, where the technology is heading. It's very, as I mentioned, it's been very in vogue in Hollywood and kind of big budget filmmaking, and we didn't see any reason why games don't deserve that same degree of effort and fidelity. And so, yeah, we built our studio for certain around this being a central component of what we can offer for games in the future.
All right, man. I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a good question.
Thank you.
Good morning. Yeah, obviously the reason to get the game would be for the story and the campaign. I wanted to know, did you guys put much thought into the online play, or will there be online play?
Most definitely. We are kind of taking a little bit different approach from Lost Planet 2 in that for our campaign story mode, it is very much a single-player experience. And hopefully everybody who saw the panel will understand why, because we're trying to tell Jim's story. And when you've got him out in the wilderness and you're trying to sell the loneliness and the isolation, you don't really want another copy of Jim running next, alongside next to him. So for the campaign, for the story mode, it's a single-player experience. But we have a separate suite of multiplayer modes, and we'll be talking more about the details of those as we move forward before the game release. But rest assured that multiplayer is a core component of Lost Planet franchise, and we're going to do it justice for LP3 as well. So can't wait to show that more in the future.
Right,
and a nice segue for that would be CapcomUnity.com, as well as our Facebook page. Just bookmark that and come back to it regularly.
Good morning. I have a question about the gameplay, and I was just wondering if there's any way for you to fight what you consider the big acrid, like as a human walking around, is there any way to actually progress past that part in the actual demo gameplay? And if there's any other way of defeating boss-like monsters besides using QuickTime actions?
Okay, well, 2 points. Number one, you can defeat any enemy either in the rig or out. So in the demo that we showed for the second half, we got in the rig to finish the spitter. But if he could have left the rig on the platform and finished him off on foot, and yes, it is possible to do it. It's going to be a little harder, but it is possible to do it, definitely. And the second thing is we've got a lot of I think there's been a little bit of misunderstandings for people that watch the videos because it's hard to tell when you're not playing. But when you're in the rig and you're doing those actions, when you're grabbing, lifting, and drilling, all of that is controlled directly by the player. In fact, the drill actually has to be aimed in order to hit anything. So it's not what you would consider to be a QuickTime event in terms of just push some buttons and it happens automatically. You've got to use all of the triggers and the buttons and the sticks to grab something. In the instance of the spitter, grab the tail, lift it up. So you've got to grab it, lift it with the stick, and then you've actually got to aim that drill, and it's moving, and it's wiggling around, so you've got to follow it with the drill. So the goal for us was to really make you feel as though you're always in control of this big machine. We never want to take that control away from the player. So if you play the demo, I think it'll come across. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes in the videos.
And I have to add on to that we did, almost from the inception, identify that this is going to be a kind of a hallmark changing moment to do a first-person melee combat in a giant rig. And I have to tell you've got to go play it. It really feels great. It's a lot of fun, and it's a really different perspective rather than just shooting or having machine guns. You really get this great engagement with the world and with the creatures.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good morning. Just got a question. The facial animation stuff was amazing, and obviously we've come a long way from like Resident Evil on PlayStation, but I'm just curious, obviously they have the little balls everywhere. What do you guys do to get rid of the like the glassy eye look? Like, how the kind of characters sometimes look dead behind the eyes? How do you get it to look more lifelike, like a person?
Oh, this is my John Root, our character technical director, would be thrilled you asked this question because he spent many late nights focusing on the eyes. I mean, they detail out a lot of complex textures and algorithms to get like the meniscus reflecting properly, and we understand that when you have glassy eyes on a character, it completely takes you out of the performance. It goes to that uncanny valley land of seeing like a talking robot. So we wanted the eyes to feel wet and organic and not feeling like just kind of this shell. So yeah, we spent a lot of time working on that.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I was just wondering if I haven't played the first two, will I be able to understand the story of the third one?
That's a great question. Because for Lost Planet 3, we're actually going back in time, and it's the first story in the universe chronologically. You don't have to have any prior experience with the other games to get into it, because Jim, once again, he's been told he's part of the first wave of colonists, and as far as the Lost Planet universe is concerned, this is the beginning of everything. And so we actually have been encouraging people, if you haven't played games before, check out the third one. If you like it, go into 1 and 2, because then you'll actually be able to see it chronologically. So we are including a lot of hooks and connections. So if you've played the other 2 games, you'll be like, hey, I see what you did there. A great example of that is Gale, who's our mechanic. We didn't show in this particular panel, but he actually ends up becoming the father of the protagonist in LP1. And so there's a lot of really cool connections, but you don't have to know any of that stuff. So definitely encourage you to check it out if you like what you saw today.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And by the way, everyone saw the gentleman that just spoke. Okami comes out end of this month, taking every opportunity here, cross branding.
Good morning.
Morning.
I played Lost Planet 1, loved it, it was amazing. 2, lost something, but it was still an enjoyable experience. What I noticed with 1, when you're in the, I got this at the time, it was the VS. Most of the time, at least what I noticed spending was most of it was traveling with a couple enemies here and there interspersed. Lost Planet 2 was just action nonstop, throw stuff at you, and sorta, at least to me, sacrifice some of the story. The question for you is, do you think you found a balance between the downtime and exploring and taking in the scenery of the planets, plus the huge set pieces and acrid battles that Lost Planet has been known for these years?
That's actually a really great question, and it's something that we've been discussing just as recently as last week at Spark. As we're working on the game and starting to really lock down a lot of the stuff, that's one of the biggest priorities for us has been to find that pacing. Because as I mentioned to the gentleman earlier who asked about the multiple playthroughs, we've been focusing a lot on exploration and the fact that because this planet is being settled for the first time, there aren't multiple settlements. There aren't different towns to go to. When you leave the base, that's it. You're out in the wilderness. The rig is the only thing that you have to protect you. So the exploration elements are really important. That being said, it's a game, right? You want to blow stuff up, So you've got to find that peaks and valleys, if you will, between those great set piece moments and also those more quiet areas where you're walking around, you're looking at the scenery, you're taking in that world. And so yes, I mean that's something that we really paid a lot of attention to. We've also looked at ways that we can help keep the player engaged in the world even when they're traversing the environment. And a way that we do that, and you'll actually see if you play the PlayStation 3 version of the demo that we have on the floor, is you'll get messages from your wife back on Earth as you're walking around. So they're in real time, you're still controlling the rig you're walking, but she'll actually show up and just talk to you. And so we have a lot of ways that we keep the player engaged so that they don't always feel like they're necessarily just walking around. And another aspect of that, of course, is the enemy encounters. And when you're in the rig, a lot of the enemy encounters are a little bit more kind of opportunistic. Only the largest acrid are going to actively attack you in the rig because you're so big. So you might see acrid in the environment when you're in the rig and think, I need some extra thermal energy. Let me go over and smush some bugs and get some thermal energy. So, but that is something that literally we're looking at every single day as we play the game. We're tweaking it, and we hope that we find a really great balance by the time we ship the title.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, we're going to just go for one more question. I'm sorry, guys, because there's another panel following this one, but no, well, it's another Capcom panel, but we want to give everyone a chance to set up, right? Go ahead, sir.
Hi, how's it going, guys? I just have only 2 questions. One is, what was your guys' reaction when everyone kept accusing you guys of, being in development of Star Wars Battlefront 3? Like, what was your reaction?
Yeah. What was our reaction? I mean, we understand that there's a real desire to have that. We kind of, I guess, enjoyed the moment a little bit, but felt, ultimately that's not our decision to make, and that we, actively urged people to contact LucasArts to find out what the status of Battlefront 3 was. As a developer, we really respect our relationships with our publishers, and it's never to our benefit to go as much as we'd like to engage in the community and talk about things that we have no control over. And the last thing we wanted was some very stern letter from George Lucas coming our way.
And just to clarify for everybody, we've been working on Lost Planet 3 for almost 3 years now, if you count the original concept. So Spark hasn't had time to think about anything else for quite a while.
Okay, and my last question was that I asked you guys on Twitter about the multiplayer. After you've killed someone, like, was it possible to literally just walk up to them, to their deceased corpse, crouch, stand up, and repeat the process? You guys never answered back, and that was a serious question. I want to know, can you do that?
I think that would fall under the blanket of multiplayer details, which we're not talking about at this point. However, I will say that the multiplayer team at Spark that is working on the game has been paying a lot of attention to kind of what the gaming public looks for in a multiplayer shooter. So, can't give you a specific comment, but I will say that we want to make sure we have a full feature set.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, and on that note, truly, I want to thank you. Thank you, Andrew. And thank you, Kevin, for a fascinating panel.